What can a person learn right now in 10 minutes that will be useful for the rest of their life? Story 1. What to do if someone is having a seizure. Try and move nearby furniture if possible so the patient doesn't hurt themselves. Let them get on with it. Once the seizure is over, move them somewhere safe and comfortable, a bed if at all possible, and keep them warm. Anyone with epilepsy will have done this many times before, and an ambulance is not necessary. Save it for someone who needs it. If it is someone's first seizure or you're not sure, 999, 112, 911, whatever. If a seizure lasts more than 2 minutes, call the emergency services. If a person has more than one seizure without regaining consciousness, call the emergency services. Never put anything in their mouth. You run the danger of choking them. And never try to restrain them. You will get hurt. I have epilepsy, and it scares the life out of me that if I have a seizure on the street, people won't know what to do. Another life pro tip, if you are epileptic or diabetic, etc., inform friends, coworkers, and other people and tell them what to do in an emergency. For some unknown reason, this is hardly ever taught in layman's first aid. Don't know about those in medical professions. Okay, yeah, this all sounds like good advice, but seems a bit strange that people need to be reminded not to put things in unconscious people's mouths. Really, if I try to think about it, the only things I can come up with that are logical for one person to basically shove in someone else's face hole is maybe like a pacifier if you're caring for a baby, or like some chocolate-covered strawberries if you're a romantic. The rest of the tips are solid, so I'll dedicate this comment to all the dogs with epilepsy and refer everyone to the Flight of the Conchords song about the topic. Think about all the epileptic dogs. Not all the puppies are born so lucky. Somewhere there's a golden retriever who's having a seizure. Somewhere there's a pup seizing up, and there's a Labrador who's shaking on the floor. Hey, good day, fellas. Sorry you had to hear that. That's me singing. Yeah, room for improvement, I'll say. Anyway, first things first, thanks again for having me as the guest narrator while Mainly Fact is on break. I'm happy to help where I can. I know our deliveries are quite different. I tend to be more mellow compared to the energetic sound that you're used to, so I really appreciate that most of you are pretty open and receptive to the temporary change. It's a great community you've got here, and I feel very welcome, so thank you for that. I do want to straighten out some stuff, though. My name is not Josh, as some were stating in the comments. It's actually Shepard. I'm the voice of Internet Recap and a bunch of other YouTube channels, but I'll leave those for you to speculate on for now. Moving on, Story 2. How to correctly stab someone with an EpiPen. My girlfriend has a peanut allergy, and I really would love to live in a world where most people know the correct way to use the instrument. Step 1. Take off the cap. It's blue. This is the side that points away from their body. Step 1.5. Make sure you won't hit their phone. Step 2. Stab that stuff into their leg, upper outer thigh. Through any non-super thick pants is fine. Jeans is fine. Thumb holding the sides, you stab them with the orange side. Step 3, hold it there for 3 seconds. It used to say 10 seconds. EMT guy in the comments says FDA recently changed this to 3 seconds. Step 4, call 911. EpiPens by time not fix the problem entirely. Do not be gentle. Bruises heal. Being gentle often causes a muscle twitch. Their reflex will be to jerk away, and if the needle comes out without giving them the dose, you can't just re-stab them. Hold their leg from the inside, otherwise it could cause a large cut that almost always results in a scar associated with unpleasant memories. Also, rub the injection site for a few seconds after you remove it from their skin. It will help get into their bloodstream faster. Also, do not hold it with your thumb over the end, as some EpiPens are double-ended. Grab it full fist with all your fingers curled around the midsection. You do not want an injection directly into a small appendage like your thumb. Seems like a dumb thing to have to explain, but people do weird stuff under stress. Yeah, it's actually really important to know how to use an EpiPen, especially if you or someone you know has a peanut allergy. And you know you have a serious peanut allergy when you have to wear a hazmat suit to a baseball game. Forget peanuts and Cracker Jacks. It's all about antihistamines and EpiPens now. Story 3. Take 10 minutes and make a recipe list with corresponding groceries. You will save a ton of money on food this week and actually like the things you're eating. Eventually, it'll become a habit, and you'll thank yourself when you're eating food you actually like and want to eat every day at work, and save a ton of money. peanut butter, jelly, bread, toaster waffles, frozen corn dogs. Yep, saves me tons of money, and I don't even have to buy any pots and pans. Yeah, it's easy to fall into the trap of buying prepackaged meals or eating out every day, but doing so can actually quickly add up and become expensive. By taking the time to plan out meals and snacks for the week, you can save money and ensure that you're eating foods that you actually like. Definitely also helps to have a lovely wife who does all this work for you. Not to sound misogynistic, but at least in my house that's how it works, and I'm very lucky. Story 4. This will get buried, but my dad taught me 2 career-related life rules that are in my head every day. Every job and workplace will have BS and workplace politics. You need to find an office with the BS you can live with. Figure out the budget you can live on, factor in 1 or 2 reasonable entertainment expenses a week or pay period, and put the rest in a savings account, preferably one that's a bit difficult to access. Every raise and bonus goes directly into that account too. You don't need more money when you're already paying your bills with some extra, so put it away for big ticket items like a down payment on a house. Story 5. How to recognize a stroke. It could save a life one day. Just remember FAST, fast. F is for face. Ask them to smile. Is one side of their face drooping? A is for arms. Ask them to lift both arms. Is one arm drifting downwards? S is for speech. Ask them to repeat a simple phrase. Is their speech slurred? T is for time. If you see any of these signs, then get help immediately. A stroke happens when blood is cut off from part of the brain, and symptoms can appear even 24 hours in advance. It is fatal if unattended, so be aware. To me, that's the scariest thing about strokes, is that they can happen at any time to anyone. It doesn't matter if you're healthy or sick, young or old, rich or poor. So definitely being aware of the signs and being able to act fast on those is huge. I've been lucky enough to not know any humans in my life that have had strokes, but I did have a dog named Shelby when I was younger, and she was diabetic. She needed like 2 shots of insulin per day. Towards the end of her life, she had a stroke, and as a kid, being a child and not knowing what to do, that was one of the scariest things in my life. Story 6. Put yourself last in a sentence and take your friends' names out. If the sentence still makes sense, you've formatted it correctly. Example, would you like to go with Joe and I? Take away Joe, and the sentence becomes, would you like to go with I? Which sounds stupid. So it should read, would you like to go with Joe and me? Because after taking away Joe, again, it reads, would you like to go with me? Which is a proper sentence. Too many people think you just replace me with I and call it a day, but it doesn't always work. Conversely, Joe and me went to the store. Take away Joe, and the sentence reads, me went to the store, which once again sounds stupid. So the sentence should read, Joe and I went to the store, because when you remove Joe once more, it reads, I went to the store, which is a proper sentence. Story 7. Here's the real answer to the OP, how to unclog a toilet using an expedient bucket flush. Situation, you have just taken a dump at someone else's place, and due to either the sheer volume of crap or using too much toilet paper, you've clogged the toilet when attempting to flush. There is no plunger in sight. You don't want to risk a second flush overflow and make a bad situation worse. Mission, unclog the toilet and leave the bathroom with honor. Execution, look around for the small trash can. Take out the garbage liner if present. If not already on, turn on exhaust fan. Fill the can with water from the bathtub faucet. Open faucet discreetly as to minimize noise. In one continuous, in a smooth pour, direct the water towards the hole of the toilet. The steady downpour will break up and push the clog and begin the siphon effect. The toilet will flush, but will leave a measly quantity of water. Flush the toilets to get rid of any stragglers. Replace can liner in can. Ensure shower curtain goes back to the original position. Wash hands, turn off exhaust fan, and walk out with confidence. Administration and logistics, the small garbage can is the most obvious choice, but may not be available. Be resourceful and look for any containers of opportunity. Females tend to keep containers under the vanity. Command and signal. After proper execution, ensure no trace of the technique is present. This means no drips of water, displaced containers, or disturbed surroundings. A professional leaves no traces. Obfuscate questions about the running tub. If challenged, ask the inquisitor if he or she was listening to you poop. That will end the conversation. Go ahead and try it. You're welcome. I suppose this is one way to handle the situation. It's more of a reactive measure than a preventative one, though. If you want to avoid these situations altogether, perhaps consider a poop knife. I won't say too much about that, as it's one of those if you know things, and if you don't, then you're better off not knowing. Story 8. The proper way to perform CPR. You very well could save someone's life, but the number one rule is to directly command someone to call 911. If you say, "Somebody call 911," everyone will just look around hoping someone else will do it. You need to point to someone and tell them they specifically need to call for help. Story 9. Salting your pasta while boiling them results in delicious pasta, which brings out the flavor of whatever sauce you're going to use on them. Edit, thanks for making this my highest rated comment by a long shot and exceeding the 10K cumulative mark. Are there people not salting their pasta? Edit, one more thing. Try putting the pasta in your pan with a sauce. It mixes the sauce better and stops the pasta from sticking. Story 10. Basic sewing skills. Running stitch, backstitch, and whip stitch, and how to sew on a button. If you're really ambitious and have slightly longer than 10 minutes, how to put in a zipper and how to rehinge something. Even if you only learn a few basics, you can fix most quick clothing issues. There's nothing worse than a button popping off of your only clean shirt when you're in a rush and have no way of fixing it. Also, life pro tip for once you've got your skills in place, keep a few needles threaded with a few inches of black and white thread, and any other color you wear often, so that when you find a small busted seam or button has popped off, you don't have to try and thread a needle in a rush to fix it. Edit, for anyone curious, running stitch is for embroidery, but technique applies anywhere. Backstitch, again for embroidery, but applicable anywhere. Whip stitch, mostly for hemming, but technique can be used to join any two pieces of fabric together in any orientation. This isn't the best tutorial I could find, but most of them that popped up immediately were about joining knit and crochet pieces. Technique is applicable, but they talk about counting your stitches and blah 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 blah, things that don't apply to regular fabric. How to sew a button, pretty self-explanatory. One time my fiancé lost a button on his suit coat and asked if I could reattach it. I said sure, and got a needle and thread. He was amazed that I didn't use a sewing machine. Like, what, honey? Edit, I get that some buttons can be sewn on by machine. This one couldn't, and it was on a suit jacket. And I'm not dragging out and setting up a sewing machine to do a button. Not sure if anyone else has ever heard this phrase before, but oftentimes my mom would respond to me saying, "So what?" with, "Sew buttons on your underwear." So there's another use case if you do learn how to sew. Although personally, I enjoy saying underpants instead. There's just something about it that makes me giggle inside. Story 11. To stop caring about others' opinions. Or as David Foster Wallace puts it, you will become way less concerned with what other people think of you when you realize how seldom they do. Story 12. The quick way to convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius, subtract 30 and halve it. Or for Celsius to Fahrenheit, double it and add 30. It's not absolutely precise, but it gets you to within a degree or two and makes life easier when looking at weather forecasts and recipes, etc. in other countries, or when talking to my mother about the temperature. Story 13. When doing CPR, you should do chest compressions to the beat from Stayin' Alive. Most people don't realize that effective CPR is a two-person job, and the chest part actually involves compressing this fast and often. Edit. Tons of people are complaining about this not being enough. Technically, it's not, but it's better than someone having no idea how to do CPR at all. In short, Stayin' Alive has about 104 beats per minute, so it's slightly below the medically recommended 2 compressions per second. However, it also provided untrained novices with an easily recognizable beat to work from. I would rather someone with no CPR training compress my chest while humming Stayin' Alive to themselves than them doing 1 compression a second and cutting my chances of survival in half. This is not a substitute for proper CPR training, don't think otherwise, but this is a good thing you can learn in 20 seconds that helps people be heaps and bounds better at CPR than knowing absolutely nothing at all about it. Before I heard this information, I thought you should do about 1 compression per second, as my last CPR class was like 2 decades ago and not very thorough. Now at least I know enough to give someone a fighting chance. At first I was afraid, I was petrified. This reminds me of the show The Office. They had a skit that involves doing chest compressions to the beat of Stayin' Alive. It's a good episode. You guys should definitely watch it. I think this story is a great reminder of the importance of learning basic first aid skills, including CPR, and the fact that you can learn a simple trick like using Staying Alive as a beat for chest compressions in just 20 seconds is pretty amazing. So go ahead, hum that song to yourself and feel empowered in your ability to potentially save someone's life. Story 14. Metacognition, or the awareness and understanding of one's thought processes. In other words, you know when you don't know something, and as a result, you put forth effort to learn it. Story 15. Survivorship bias. The key example is every time you hear about Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg dropping out of college and becoming billionaires. So it should make sense for people to drop out of college and found their tech startup. That's a horrible idea. To understand, back in World War II, they were trying to figure out where planes should be reinforced. So they marked on a diagram where all the bullet holes were on the plane that returned safely from missions. That initial thought was to reinforce the places where the holes were, until somebody pointed out that those holes were in the planes that made it back safely. Planes with holes in the other areas that were not marked on the diagram did not return safely, so they should reinforce those areas instead. Too long didn't read. When and if I ever win the lottery, I'll be like an ex-KCD comic and tell everybody to keep buying lottery tickets and never give up their hope, because if I did it, they can too. This applies to music too. When people watch Guardians of the Galaxy and moan about how the 70s had much better music, they don't realize that only the good stuff has survived until now. The sucky, repetitive tunes have been forgotten and filtered out through time. Survivorship bias is a real phenomenon that we should all be aware of, because if we hear about success stories, it doesn't always mean that we should follow the same path. It's important to look at the bigger picture and take into account all the factors that contribute to success. So yeah, let's celebrate success, but let's also remember that there's more to the story than what we hear about in the media.
Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you enjoy the rest of the video and have a great day.
Story 16. That you should really take all of your antibiotics and not skip them because you don't feel like it. This really messes with antibiotic resistance, yet continuously goes unheeded because a large portion of people feel it's okay to do so. Story 17. Keyboard shortcuts. Control-Shift-T reopens a closed tab or window. Total lifesaver. Control-Shift and Escape opens a task manager. Windows key and arrows will snap your window to the direction pressed. Windows key, shift, and left arrow or right arrow will move your window to the next monitor. Story 18. The fact that you don't actually have to be friends with people you don't like. Story 19. The 80-20 rule, or Pareto principle. Wiki gives a fairly dry version of it, but effectively you use it in life as do the 20% that gets you 80% of what you want. It's important to understand all aspects of life because perfection is usually worthless. The effort to squeeze the last drops out are simply not worth the juice. You determine where the easy part of something is and do that. Eventually you do more, but focusing on getting that 20% is the first step to major progress. If the act of getting to the gym ends up in you successfully doing some form of exercise that you want to be doing, then focus on getting to the gym. That's the 20%. After you have the routine and space made in your life for getting to the gym, then the rest will follow. It's endlessly effective in helping you for the rest of your life with almost anything. Knowing a simple one-off trick is less important than learning a rule for understanding how to live happily. I think the 80-20 rule is a valuable tool that we can all use to make progress in our lives without getting bogged down in the details. By focusing on the most important aspects of a task or a goal, we can make major strides towards success while still maintaining our sanity. Story 20. 2 rules. Assume nothing. Follow up and check. My father taught me these, and I've found that virtually every major mess-up in my life can be traced back to ignoring one of them. Story 21. The NATO phonetic alphabet. Because spelling out words over a crappy line can cause mistakes. Alpha Bravo Charlie, Delta Echo Foxtrot Golf Hotel India Juliet Kilo Lima Mike November Oscar Papa Quebec Romeo Sierra Tango Uniform Victor Whiskey X-Ray Yankee Zulu. All I know is M, as in Mancy. Story 22. If you bump into a butthole in the morning, you bumped into a butthole. If you bump into buttholes all day, you're the butthole. Or you work in retail. Story 23. X% of Y equals Y% of X. If you need to find 3% of 50, you can instead find 50% of 3, which is 1.5. Oh, cool. I'll try this. What's 15% of 45? 45% of 15. Oh, frick. Story 24. In Excel, select all by using Control-A, I'm sure you all knew, but then when you press the following separately after, Alt-H-O-I, voila, all your columns' widths are now auto-fitted. Change the I to A for height. Story 25. If you have computer data that is very important and will probably be a huge hit in the box office because the goddamn series is finally over, then don't store it all in one place. Keep at least one backup on a computer that will never see the lights of the internet. So if by chance a massive ransomware attack comes by, you don't potentially lose millions of dollars and thousands of hours of work. Edit. Pirates of the Caribbean was not a victim of the global ransomware attack. My mistake, but it is being held for ransom. 3-2-1 rule. 3 backups in 2 places, at least 1 off-site. I think a lot of this still applies in modern times, but data storage is definitely evolving from where we were even like 10 years ago. I used to work in IT and would visit various companies' off-site data centers, so I've seen a lot of heavily protected server rooms. The one that always made me curious was Iron Mountain, which is a service that picks up companies' physically backed up tapes and drives it to a secure off-site location. Iron Mountain's The Underground is a secure information storage facility that lies 220 feet below ground in a massive naturally protected former limestone mine. The Underground is the trusted repository for vital records of all types, including some of the world's most valuable information. Of course, nowadays we also have cloud storage as well. Story 26. Don't mess with someone who has cauliflower ears, but call them whatever you like. They can't hear you because their ears are made of cauliflower. Story 27. How to say no to another thread on the internet at 3 a.m. Of course, this does not apply to listening to another mainly fact or internet recap story. That should go on forever. Story 28. How to escape zip ties. Good if you're ever in a riot where the police just slap zip ties on everyone and you feel like defying them. Edit. Nah, you can't break out of riot cuffs anyway. So good if you're kidnapped by someone on a budget. Story 29. Clicking a link with your scroll wheel will open it in a new background tab. Welcome to the world of having over 50 tabs open at any time. Story 30. When screwing the left pedal onto a bicycle, the thread is reversed, so left is tighter and right is looser. I worked at a bike shop over the summer. A few times people came in saying they couldn't get the left pedal off no matter how hard they twisted. They were making it tighter. Lefty-tighty, righty-loosey. Story 31. Corny as heck, but learning to say no. Some people find it almost impossible to say that tiny word. There are a bunch of YouTube videos on it. Seriously, saying no sometimes in your life will make it a lot easier. Story 32. Fat loss is at least 80% diet. Story 33. In any negotiation, make your point and shut up. This is true with a Craigslist sale, and it's true in a political discussion. I need $20 for the guitar. Or, I think X stance is correct because Y. When you keep talking to reinforce your position, you usually provide weaker points that are easier to refute and effectively weaken your position. Story 34. How to tie a tie. Applies both for those who have to wear them and those who can help tie one for someone else. Story 35. If you ever wanted to paste any text from a website or a document in another one without having the text being formatted with its original font size, color, and style, use Control-Shift and V instead of Control-V. This saves lives. Story 36. How to properly breathe. Normally we take shallow breaths into our chest. However, if we actually take just 10 minutes out of every day to focus on our breath and breathe down into our abdomen, we will actually begin to relax and feel so much nicer. Suddenly, things like meditation become easier. You become more aware of the here and now. Emotions are much more available to deal with and process, among many physical benefits, all just building on the simple act of breathing properly. Manual breathing mode activated. Fine dining and breathing is all I know. Story 37. The basic structure of your nation's political system. It is amazing how few people can give even an explain like I'm 5 version of how ideas become laws, or who the top boss of their policeman is, or what are all the decisions they as a voter actually get to vote on. Wikipedia, politics of country. Off you trot. It'll be a little dry, but you are now an adult. This stuff matters. Story 38. A proper shoelace knot. There's fast ways to tie knots, which are quicker to tie normal shoelaces, but the one that I use exclusively, shoes will never come untied again. Want to learn how to tie your shoes? It's a very easy thing to do. Sit on down and I'll give you the scoop. What's that? It's called the loop-de-loop. Want to take a lace in each hand. You go over and under again. You make a loop-de-loop and you pull, and your shoes are looking good. Story 39. You guys have just provided BuzzFeed with like 3 years worth of headlines. Story 40. Standard tuning on guitar can be remembered as E, every, A, acid, D, dealer, G, gets, B, busted, E, eventually. Had a friend teach me that 20 years ago. I remember still. Eddie ate dynamite. Goodbye, Eddie. Story 41. The Heimlich maneuver. I have created a maneuver, said Dr. Heimlich. Story 42. How to change a tire. Story 43. Google more effectively. Story 44. How to recognize pseudoscience at a basic level. Basically, anything that ignores data not supporting the hypothesis only works with low response rates, draws false equivalencies, or is not generalized to anything or anyone. Story 45. Everyone has a reason for something. Figure out their angle. Lies, truths, excuses, actions. Always keep looking for the reasons, and then you will learn to judge people better. Story 46. Doing these 2 things will immediately improve the quality of your life. Don't take things personally. Assume the best in people. Simple, yet so challenging. Story 47. Never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by stupidity. Story 48. The long chain is for the light. The short chain is for the fan. So remember this in long light, short spin. And in the middle of the night when you want to turn the fan on, they both turn the light on. Fascinating. Story 49. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, unless you're screwing the left pedal of the bicycle.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.